Okay, I'm back. English 102, Pride and Prejudice, second lecture for the day. We're going to talk about, I'm skipping to the end of the book now, chapter 59. Sorry, not 59, 58, excuse me. Chapter 58. If you're in a different edition, that's overall chapter, volume 3, chapter XVI, chapter, uh, uh, what chapter is that? 16. 16 of this volume. Okay, so this is the chapter where Darcy proposes to Lizzie again, the second time, and this time she says yes, because it's a romantic comedy, and that's how they end, as you probably know from watching a few or being forced to watch a few over the course of your life. And a lot has happened since where I just left you in chapter 43. For one thing, that very promising opening that's offered by the chance encounter between them in 43 that then leads to her meeting his younger sister who's shy but very sweet, and they seem to get along, and Darcy's really encouraging. Suddenly all that is thrown into doubt when word reaches her on her vacation that her dumbass sister Lydia, the youngest, right, the one who's a flirt and everything, Lydia has eloped when her dad let her go to Brighton. All the militiamen who were in Merrington, in the town near where their estate is, have been ordered to go to Brighton, probably to ship out to to go fight Napoleon. And there are all those young girls who love these guys in their red coats. They're heartbroken, and Lydia is friends with one of the captain's wives, one of the captains in the regiment, and in the militia, excuse me, and Lydia persuades her dad to let her go, and while she's there, she elopes. That is, she runs away with the thought of getting married to Wickham, this guy who's just terrible, but who only a few people know what he's really capable of, and they're basically lost to the world. And because Lydia's done something like this, it's going to damage the reputation of her sisters, and they'll probably, according to the norms and standards of politeness in this society for the upper class, basically be tainted and stained by this elopement. And the whole problem becomes, can they even find them and force them to get married? And the father doesn't have the money to prevail upon Wickham to make him marry his daughter. So Darcy, without Lizzie knowing it, because he happens to be in the room when she gets this letter, he takes upon himself to find Wickham, pay off the guy's debts, pay for a new commission as an officer in a northern militia, and then forces him to marry Lydia in exchange for all this monetary support. Okay, all without wanting Lizzie to know, and telling the gardeners who he knows in town, they're all hiding in London, the gardeners go back there, telling them, you guys take the credit for it. It then comes to Lizzie's attention that he's done this by accident when Lydia, visiting the home estate, their estate at Longbourn, visiting with Wickham, and one time they're going to be able to go there. The father's so pissed, Mr. Bennet's so pissed. After the marriage, visiting them there, she lets it slip to Lizzie that Darcy was at their wedding, and then Lizzie's like, holy cow, did he have something to do with this? Does this mean he still loves me? You know, she's uncertain of all these things. They can't talk about it because their society's so formal and polite. And so, and then now other things that have happened is, just so you understand what happens, Jane and Bingley has returned to Netherfield Park, the estate he was renting, that he left for the season, for the winter. He went to London. He's back, and he and Jane have reconnected, and now they're engaged. And so you're just kind of waiting as a reader for, okay, that's good, but what I really want is Darcy and Lizzie, these two people with all this kind of chemistry that comes across as anger and hatred towards each other, that for them to be engaged. And Darcy's like kind of dropping the ball in all these different circumstances. And then finally what happens hilariously is that his aunt, that woman we met earlier in the novel, have you seen the films too, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, she gets wind of this, that maybe they're going to be engaged soon, and comes to visit Lizzie and tries to force Lizzie to say that she won't marry him, and Lizzie refuses. And it's this very like think for yourself, growing up, coming of age moment where she stands up to this rich old lady and says, "No, I'll do what I want. I'm a gentleman's daughter. Sure, I'm poorer than him, but we if we like each other, that's our business, not yours." And that taught Darcy to hope when he gets word that this upstart, obstinate, impudent woman won't, when his aunt complains to him that she wouldn't give her word to not marry him, he's like, oh man, maybe she will marry me, because from what I know of her, she'll definitely tell you what she thinks if she wants to. So he comes again to Longbourn, and Lizzie has to start the conversation. You see Austen's heroines here. They have courage, they have pluck, they can rise to the occasion when needed, and it's needed in this case because she rejected him so wholly before that he's afraid to ask again. And he doesn't even really ask her. It's so beautiful and perfect the way it comes across. His manners have improved, but fundamentally, I think that's a surface. Underneath that, the love they share is not this politeness stuff. It's still that love is uncivil. Okay, so I'm at the beginning of the chapter in the third paragraph here. Lizzie, they're walking along with Kitty, the second youngest sister, and Kitty gets ahead of them. They're walking into town, and Lizzie brings it up to Darcy that he saved Lydia, and to this point, he has no idea that she knows he was involved in this. So look at this, Mr. Darcy, and you see Lizzie's humor, her self-deprecation. She's quick on her feet. She uses that to introduce this topic that's not supposed to be talked about because she can't stand it anymore. It's like, dude, do you love me or not? Like, grow up here. Okay, so here we are, bottom third paragraph of chapter 16. Mr. Darcy, I'm a very selfish creature, and for the sake of giving relief to my own feelings, care not how much I may be wounding yours. She's making fun of herself. She's not really selfish. She's just, got to do something to break the ice here. I can no longer help thanking you for your unexampled kindness to my poor sister, Lydia, that is, who was mistakenly, decided to elope with Wickham. Wickham would have deserted her and abandoned her, and she would have never been able to marry if not for Darcy, and would have stained all the other sisters if not for Darcy's intervention to pay all his debts and pay for his new commission and help this guy he hates for love of Lizzie, basically, which he'll now admit to. Ever since I have known it, I have been most anxious to acknowledge to you how grateful I feel it. Were it known to the rest of my family, I should not have merely my own gratitude to express. She's thanking him. And then here he goes. Again, his politeness is there, but you have to feel that underneath the politeness, there's this tension, this love, this passion. Okay, I'm sorry, exceedingly sorry, replied Darcy in a tone of surprise and emotion, that you have ever been informed of what may, in a mistaken light, have given you uneasiness. I did not think Mrs. Gardner was so little to be trusted. He thinks it comes from his aunt, and he thinks that if she heard about this, she would think he's trying to buy her favor when she's not. He's trying to selflessly help her and not have any credit for it and never have her know about it, okay? And then she replies, I'm on 346 now, you must not blame my aunt. Lydia's thoughtlessness first betrayed to me that you had been concerned in the matter, and of course I could not rest until I knew the particulars. Let me thank you again and again, in the name of all my family, for that generous compassion which induced you to take so much trouble and bear so many mortifications for the sake of discovering them being Lydia and Wickham in London. He went and found them and forced them to get married. If you will thank me, he replied, let it be for yourself alone. And now we're coming to the point here, that the wish of giving you happiness, of giving happiness to you, might add force to the other inducements which led me on, I shall not attempt to deny. But your family owe me nothing. Much as I respect them, I believe I thought only of you. Oh, yeah. And now she says, Elizabeth was much too embarrassed to say a word. After a short pause, her companion added, and you see now how much he's changed, how much more, it's manners, but it's really, it's not fake. It's his actual character, his real person, that he's a loving, caring person, he's trying more to make it show to people in how he acts with them. It's not a fake politeness. It's a genuine display of who he is through his manners. And look at how he asks for her hand in marriage now. He doesn't even ask, really. He just mentions how he asked before. It's very delicate and subtle what he does. It's beautiful. Elizabeth was too much embarrassed to say a word. After a short pause, her companion added, quote, "You are too generous to trifle with me. If your feelings are still what they were last April, tell me so at once. My affections and wishes are unchanged, but one word from you will silence me on this subject forever." That is, uh, my feelings are unchanged. I want to marry you. I love you, etc. But say a word and I'll never bring it up. He barely even brings it up. He doesn't say, "Will you marry me again?" He says, "My feelings and wishes are unchanged." Again, one of those classic litotes we were talking about. Affirm by denial. Deny the opposite. My feelings are unchanged. Not my feelings are still the same, but they are unchanged. Elizabeth, and now you see again Austen's decision. This is where this book is not cheesy and corny like some of the movies can be of it. Lizzie's dialogue is not reported directly. Austen pulls back from the back and forth conversation and just describes in a kind of playful, funny way how they're trying to communicate that she's like, "Yeah, I do want to marry you," but they're so overcome with emotion that to report it directly would be corny, and Austen has too much taste and discretion as an author to do that to us, so she pulls back, and you just hear it reported secondhand and described, not their actual speech. So listen to this. Lizzie, feeling all the more common awkwardness and anxiety of her situation, now forced herself to speak, right? To say, and immediately, though not fluently, she's being awkward, she's overcome by emotion, gave him to understand that her sentiments had undergone so material a change since the period to which he alluded, that is last April, as to make her receive with gratitude and pleasure his present assurances. Okay, so she's like forced herself to speak, doesn't do so very fluently, but says yes, essentially. The happiness which this reply produced was such as he had probably never felt before, and he expressed himself on the occasion as sensibly and as warmly as any man violently in love can be supposed to do. That is, he didn't express himself very well, and Austen is pulled back for that reason, so that we laugh with him and not at him here. So he's like, "Oh my God, you love me? Holy shit!" Had Elizabeth been able to encounter his eyes, she's so embarrassed and overcome that she's looking down in embarrassment, almost like shame. She might have seen how the expression of heartfelt delight diffused over his face became him. But though she could not look, she could listen, and he told her of feelings which, improving of what importance she was to him, made his affection every moment more valuable. So they're in love now, and they're finally able to talk about it. Again, it's been like 15 chapters since the one I just went over, and it's finally happening. And then go on here, and you'll see it returns. Right away, they kind of regain their composure, and Austen, of course, correspondingly returns to reporting their dialogue directly to us, to using the dialogue directly. They walked on without knowing in what direction. They're just walking, they're lost, right? Lost in their feelings for each other. There was too much to be thought and felt and said for attention to any other object. She soon learned that they were indebted for their present good understanding to the efforts of his aunt, who did call on him in her return. And this is the comedy. She tried to go there to prevent them from getting married by getting Lizzie to tell her she'll never marry Darcy. And instead, the aunt actually brought them together by going and trying to stop it. It's very funny. She soon learned that they were indebted, as Lizzie learns that they were indebted for their present good understanding to the efforts of his aunt, who did call on him in her return through London, and there relate her journey to